Conservation Commission meeting of Wednesday, April 13th, 2022 at 7 p.m. And our first agenda item at 7 p.m. is open forum. Any of the committee members?
I had something.
Noel?
I was walking along East Boston Camps and down the, I think it's Burgess Pond Trail. It's right along the water. The beavers are cutting down all those trees right next to the trail, and it's really dangerous. I don't know if we want to think about closing off that one little trail for a season or two, so that can kind of reestablish itself, or I don't know.
Don't know anything about,
I wish I had gone. I didn't have my phone on me. I would have taken some pictures, but it's...
Jim, you're down there all the time.
No, I haven't.
Matt, could you take a look?
Yeah, I'll certainly I'll
look.
swing out this week, take some photos.
Okay, if it looks dangerous, maybe we'll shut it down.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it.
Spikes from the trees
So-
sticking up, or
But it's
the beavers are
around.
cutting down trees on the hill, so as you're walking along, they're like,
also a lot
Right,
of trees to go
yeah.
over and a few hanging up.
yeah,
Okay, so this is around the pond itself.
yes.
Right on the
Okay,
trail.
because last year, Stony Brook, there was a lot of beaver activity along the actual edge of Stony Brook. So, yeah, I'll stop out this week and take a look.
Thanks, Matt.
Matt, do you have anything?
I do. As a reminder, tomorrow night from April 14th from 7 to 9 is the public forum regarding tree and invasive species inventory and management plan. The link is available on the town website homepage in that calendar, so there's an event you can go click. I forgot to include it in the commission's packet. Annual town meeting is June 11th. And also just a couple things in the town manager's newsletter that came out today. Brush chipping will be performed by the highway department April 23rd up at the highway garage. And also tangentially to that is the electronic recycling day, also up at the highway garage on April 30th, the following Saturday. So
April 30th?
yeah, so if you have an old computer or something to get rid of, make sure you get it up there and
Recycle your electronics.
yeah, appropriately.
There you go. Love it. Anything else from the commission or the audience in open forum? Seeing none, we're going to move on to our next 7 p.m. agenda item, which is an appointment with Michelle Collette, Director of Recreation, pertaining to updating the East Boston Camps licensing rates.
Hi,
Michelle.
thank you for having me. So as some of you, all of you might know, I do all the permitting for the rentals at East Boston Camps. Over the course of the last couple of years, and especially with COVID, so many things have changed as far as the rentals are concerned. So I kind of wanted to put this in front of you to see if we can streamline some of the things that have been going up there. We have all sorts of licensing rates for certain things that we just haven't done since COVID. So my question to the commission would be, do we want to keep renting all of the buildings? Because I haven't been, due to, I think, cleaning. I don't know, I never was really directed, other than when COVID hit, we weren't renting the buildings because there was some extra sanitizing that needed to be done. So we didn't rent them. So my question is am I going to start renting the buildings again? Are we keeping these guidelines? So it was just kind of up in the air as to how I should be proceeding. Even next season, because I think we're good for this season, but moving forward, we've really kept with Boy Scout rentals, tent camping only, which they pitch tents and use the bathrooms. I opened the dining hall for inclement weather, and if they just needed some shelter or electricity, but for the most part, I haven't been renting any of the buildings like we used to. So it's kind of what I'm here for, to ask if, go ahead.
We want to go back to renting it the way that we were pre-COVID.
And that's weddings, and
Just
there's
gonna
like
ask
a
that.
whole, like, we're advertising a whole bunch of stuff, which I'm fine with doing. My last directive was to not rent the buildings and just do the tent camping.
I'd love to get guidelines from the Board of Health, okay?
That's what I was
Just to
thinking.
make sure. And if the Board of Health feels that we can lift those, then we can go forward with something like that. I think we want to have something higher than us, you know, looking at the big picture in terms of saying
Should we
what is
revisit the
safe.
rates?
No, it's not so, the rates too, that
Yeah.
means definite.
I know
But I'm
Board of
thinking in
Health, but-
terms, Board of Health in terms of what we should be allowing and the number of people we should with the resurgence. I'm not saying that this resurgence is going to affect us or not, but I do think I'd rather hear from that. We're always getting some sort of bulletin when they update anything.
Yep.
So I'd like to ask them the question, you know, how do you stand on this in terms of our renting it? And then absolutely, we can look at
Yeah,
your recommendations perhaps also on what you think a fair fee would be. And we could look at that and then in a second meeting, come back in and give you the okay.
sounds good. I just, again, things have, so many things
Sure.
have changed that, you know, all of this is on the back end. When I mean that by like the website. So if
Right.
people are going and Googling and searching, they're having all of this information and then they're calling me and I'm like, oh, we're not doing that right now. So I guess I'm looking for some guidance as far as what are we promoting? What are we allowing? The rates, yeah, that's Carol Gumbart and I, before she left, we went through all of these and we came up with a pretty solid plan.
You're okay with that?
But I think it's also time that some of the rates go up, and I have some ideas of what surrounding towns are doing.
So our next meeting is when?
The 27th.
So would 2 weeks be enough time to
And then
revisit
the
this?
one following that's May 11th.
Say again?
May 11th?
I mean, ask, sorry.
I'm not so thrilled with the idea of just raising rates because we haven't raised them in a while. We have a fund set up to collect rental from camp rentals as well as from the operators of the day camp. And that fund hasn't been depleted. It's not like we're losing money on that. So we have the funds available to do the maintenance that we need to do. So I'm not so thrilled about the idea of raising rates. But as far as Marilyn's idea with checking with the Board of Health, 100% behind that. I think that's a great idea, and we should ask them specifically.
Because then we'd have a reason why we said we could, you know what I mean?
And we should ask them specifically whether there's any limits for the numbers of people that would affect things like weddings or Boy Scout groups or whatever, or whether we should, whether they would require sanitization and you know,
Right.
extreme cleaning, because there's no way we're gonna do that with the rustic camps. So if those requirements are still in place, then we can still hold off on rental. If they're not, if they've, you know, eliminated all those requirements and they're open to any numbers of people and just routine cleaning from one person to the next, then I'm all for ready to go.
And then it wouldn't be an arbitrary thing that we did. It would be something that we got some guidance with.
Sure.
So that we're sure that everyone's as safe as they could be, and with that in mind, too.
Yeah, well, I think, Michelle, it sounded like you had a kind of a two-stage question. There's what we do this season, but then there's also next season where we may not be getting updates from the Board of Health, and it's like, I got the sense that you're asking, where do we want to start seeing ourselves in a year, 2 years down the road? You know, in terms of what facilities we make available, you know, who's our target renters, stuff like that.
Exactly, and I think when we were doing all these functions and weddings and that and such, we were renting the building, so it made the facility, you know, a place where they would come and stay for the weekend. So since we haven't been doing that, you know, Rose, who is my office manager, she has all this information on our myrec.com. If you go there, you click on the link and you go to the EBC website. So I'm gonna probably take a lot of this stuff down, and so we're not really advertising it per se, if that's okay. I'm not quite sure who I go to get permission from that, but if we're advertising something, I get lots of phone calls and emails. Well, it's on your
Placeholder.
website.
Can you put a placeholder on
Yeah.
there and say, you know, for the next
For-
month, we are examining this, and then we'll have another posting?
Yep.
Just so it's not a dead end for people, so that, you know, they see that
Right.
we're actively looking at something.
I mean, right now we're doing, you know, birthdays and Boy Scouts and the live action role play, so we are doing stuff that, you know, bring in some revenue. I just know that we're advertising a lot of things that we're not doing. So I guess permission to kind of take that down for
With an
now.
explanation, with some.
An explanation, right.
Get that director from the Board of Health on,
Yeah, that too. But if she's gonna change the website and people can't look it up, et cetera, then she needs to say, we're currently examining this and in another month, you can come.
Great. But you,
makes sense.
Saves her a million phone calls, I hope.
But I think there's a longer-term question as well that says, do we want to get back into the same rental
Well, we need
mode
to
that
ask
we were?
ourselves, about the money,
Yeah.
and what you're saying is enough money, and I may not agree it's enough money. I mean, what are we using the money for?
Well, no.
What are our needs for?
I wasn't thinking so much the rates in terms of, do we open up to rent the whole building so we have a group coming in, renting the place for a weekend for a wedding? Do we want to resume those types of rentals? And that's, now's the time to be thinking about what we look at for next
yes,
year.
yes, I think you're spot on. I think this is a great opportunity to kind of relook at the whole permitting of East Boston camps in general. COVID or not, I think that, with tents going up or weddings and setup, and if they're not staying over, then that kind of stuff is hard to rent because they have nowhere to stay and watch their things as they're setting up. If they're setting up a tent with tables and getting ready for a wedding and they have to tent camp, we're not seeing any of that because they want to rent the building. So I think in that sense, we're getting the Boy Scouts or the ones that like to rough it out with the fire pit and some day events.
And the costs that we have for East Boston camps comes out of our budget, correct? Oh, the
Enterprise.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay,
Okay, well, I think
all
that
right,
pretty
so it's
much
a direction.
hashes it out. I think
Yeah.
we have direction.
Yep, perfect.
And then
I think it's a multi-step process. This is a good start to see
we
where,
can talk there
Yep.
and then make a deadline for
Excellent.
what, and we can take a look at prices.
works
with
for
you.
me.
Yeah, and if you have suggestions for prices, you could have that, we could look at that.
Yeah,
So we would have looked at it before you came.
absolutely.
Okay.
Whatever you need.
And thank you for what you do.
You're welcome, Marilyn. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for having me. You guys have a great night.
You as well.
Thanks.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our 7:05 PM agenda item, which is a public hearing with the Sudbury Valley trustees in the town of Westford Conservation Department in regards to 18 Bowes Road, Lot 2.
Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, April 13th, 2022, at 7:05 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the notice of intent application of the Town of Westford Conservation Department and the Sudbury Valley trustees for the construction of a 4-foot wide by 80-foot long footbridge over Pond Brook within bordering vegetative wetlands bordering land subject to flooding, bank, and riverfront area at 18 Bowes Road, Lot 2.
Good evening. I'm Dan Stimson with Sudbury Valley Trustees.
Yeah, Charlie McCullough, O'Brien Farm, McCullough Property.
Excellent. And again, we have the public hearing notice, but again, just explain the project.
Yeah, so we've been working with Matt, and I think the commission may be familiar with the project from when we did a funding application. We received funding from the CPC as well as the Mass Trails Grant, and the hope is to create this new boardwalk that would connect the two disparate portions of trails at O'Brien Farm to make one network and really feature and highlight the wetlands and the stream, and kind of create a new link that I think everyone could enjoy when they're out on the trail. So yeah, Matt's showing the link there.
Again, as Noel mentioned, there are certainly a whole slew of resource areas where this project would potentially impact through the design. It is considered a limited project for the construction of footbridges. Granted, that the construction involves minimal minimal supports, and the second component to be considered a limited project is the decking doesn't completely shade out the vegetation underneath. And both of those design components have been included with, the conceptual design does have solid wood planking, but with working with the consulting engineer to prepare the plans for both the filing and the building permit, the decking will be a fiberglass grating so that it will not be shading out the vegetation beneath. And I think minimal grading is actually involved, and minimal disturbance of the bank for kind of where the transitions from the bridge, footbridge deck to the existing trail networks are. And we did receive a DEP file number today.
Oh, good.
I think it's 1795. I didn't see any comments.
Also good.
Do you have anything you wanted to add to this? Other than the change to the decking?
Yeah, they changed the decking to fiberglass grating, and I think the design engineer, I think in conversations with him, said that there's likely one less support going across, or one of the galvanized piers, one less. It's just
To
over.
minimize it.
Yeah, it's over designed as it is,
Okay.
as shown.
This looks great to me.
Me too.
I remember when we were originally negotiating with the conservation restriction on the property, it must be almost 10 years ago maybe, something like that, that this was where we wanted a bridge that was gonna make both parts of the property accessible, accessed from both sides. I think this is a great idea, and glad that we got the grant for it, and looking forward to it.
This looks fine to me.
Me too.
Any questions from the audience in regards to this notice? So we need to put together an order, or is this a request for determination?
It's an order,
Okay, so
so
can we have it ready at our,
certainly.
excellent, because I don't see any reason why we can't just do the
Approve.
order at our next meeting and then close it at that time.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay. So our next meeting is the 28th?
27th, starting at 7 p.m. I'll set at a meeting starting at 7, and we'll
Okay.
set the
We
agenda
don't,
as
we don't
is.
set it up.
Motion
and
to continue the public hearing until April 27th?
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
We're all
Thank you very
set.
much.
Thank you all,
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much. It's a nice, successful project.
Okay, we're going to move on to our 7:15 PM agenda item, which is a public hearing for 60 Buckboard Drive.
Oh, they're back to back. Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, April 13th, 2022, at 7:15 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the quest for determination of applicability application of Gene Donaldson for after-the-fact installation of an 8x10 shed within 100 feet of a jurisdictional wetland resource at 60 Buckboard Drive.
Evening. So we have an after-the-fact shed. And how far are we away from the resource area?
About 71 feet from the wetland resource area. The Donaldsons came before, submitted a building permit for the proposed deck addition that's shown on the plan. And at that time, when reviewing, I observed the shed and notified the property owners, and they've wanted to work to get it approved after the fact. It is fairly flat. There was minimal vegetation that was removed. Confirm it's on paver. It's not, there's no foundation.
Not at all.
71 feet away from the
Ways.
resource area, so
It's okay.
he's beyond our 50-foot no disturb.
Just one question. I saw that the shed is also used for storing your, riding lawnmower or tractor. Do you also store cans of gasoline in the shed?
We do not have any gas in the shed.
Okay.
It's in the lawnmower.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it just,
It could drip.
yeah.
It could
it
drip,
just-
so be
yeah,
careful.
okay in the lawnmower, okay.
Sometimes people will have a refill can that they store, so I wanted to ask.
We have our gas cans in our garage.
Okay, that's
Okay,
good.
so that's good. I'm all right.
Everybody okay? Questions from the audience in regards to this request for determination? Seeing none, can I have a motion to issue a conditional negative determination for 60 Buckboard Drive?
So moved.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Yep.
Don't
Motion
do
to
it
close the
again.
public hearing?
I'm sorry.
Motion to
So
close the
moved.
public hearing?
Second.
Second. All's in favor? Do I have to do this person?
Aye.
No,
Okay.
Aye.
Aye. Great.
We can vote in person.
You're set.
Thank you very much.
All I said is don't do it again. I got punchy tonight. That's good. Good, you think it's good.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our 7:20 PM agenda item, which is a public hearing for 6 Weedamoo Way.
Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, April 13th, 2022, at 7:20 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the notice of intent application of Paul Bergamo for demolition of an existing stone entryway and existing brick walkway, installation of an area drain foundation, drain dry well, and construction of a new entry and brick walkway within 100 feet of long sought-for pond and within 100 feet of bordering land subject to flooding at 6 Weedamoo Way.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing this tonight. I'm Matt Stengel with Land Tech Consultants, with Paul and Sue Bergamo, owners of 6 Weedamoo Way. Their property is on the bank of long sought-for pond. Resource areas on site are just the bank of the pond. The plan that we submitted is based off of the certificate of compliance plan that was submitted to the commission in 2013 for a previous NOI for the construction of the house. This notice of intent is to help resolve some drainage issues at the front of the house on the plan right. Right now, the way that the front walkway was designed.
There's a laser pointer right
Yeah.
here. in front of
Okay,
you.
great.
There you go. Yellow.
The yellow button.
Yellow button.
There we
Here,
go.
here's the front of the house. Walkway here is recessed lower, 3 steps lower than the driveway and 4 steps lower than the entry to the house. And right now, water from, or runoff from the driveway and from the front side of the roof collects in this area. And there has been damage to the front entrance at the northern side of the house, and there's also been water entering the foundation in the basement in this front corner. So what we're proposing is to just install remove the front entrance here, install foundation drains along the front portion of the house, install a area drain at the lower portion of the walkway, and then north of the house in the existing lawn area, install a dry well. The dry well has been designed to infiltrate. The design storm for the dry well is the 100-year storm, and it captures the front half of the roof runoff from the driveway and a portion of the driveway outside of the property, just as best management practice to try and capture as much water and not have it enter or damage the dwelling. We meet the setbacks from the pond and the 25-foot setback from the existing septic system. And then also the stoop is going to be rebuilt in the same location, And the only change to the existing condition is that this portion of the walkway is going to be raised so that it meets the grade at the driveway and is just a straight shot over to the front entrance, but no increase in impervious areas. And just like any water that's captured in the lower portion of the walkway will enter an area drain that also enters the dry well.
So my question to you is, my
Yes.
first one is, okay, you're gonna stick a dry well and you point it to, I see those like 3 rectangular blocks.
Yes.
You put a dry well there. It's probably within maybe 40 feet of the resource area. I don't know if there's any type of treatment. It's simply water taken from the driveway and other areas and just discharged into the dry well without any treatment within 40 feet of the resource area. So I'm wondering if they needed some sort of, treatment prior to going into the dry well.
We didn't include any pretreatment. The area drain would have, I mean, it wouldn't be a deep sump catch basin, but there would be a small sump, which stormwater management, you don't get any TSS removal or any nutrient removal credit for that. But we could look into a way to get additional treatment.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if we can get some treatment there, typically we would want something a little further away than where you're putting it. And I'm thinking, okay, I see where you want to put it, and I'm just wondering if we could get some additional treatment.
Yeah, we are pretty limited to where the
Where
dry
you can
well
put it.
can go.
Yeah, I know.
Like, because this is the only part of the property where, I mean, but then you're closer to the well and
Exactly.
you
I get
can't
it.
get water to go uphill.
I get it. Go ahead, Marty.
Yeah. My questions were along the line of Eric, because you've got an existing paved driveway, and my concern would be anything that was put down to deal with ice during the winter, as precipitate, if it rains or the ice melts and the stuff is flowing into the system, is salts, whatever chemicals are used to deal with ice on those surfaces gets into the dry well without treatment. It's fairly close to the resource area. So that would be one of the concerns I would have.
That's something you could look at.
Yes, we could look into it.
I guess my question though is, this is an existing drainage system that was put in when you guys worked with the original homeowners? I didn't build the house. But this system there's already a system there. It doesn't work. So.
We didn't design the system.
No.
so-
I'm not blaming you at all.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming. I'm just saying there's just already a system there. I'm just trying to fix it because it doesn't drain correctly and it's water's building up against my foundation.
And we want to help you fix it.
Yeah.
All
We're not
looking to
saying you
do is
can't put it there, we're just
put a
saying
little
you
treatment because you
treat it.
want to put a dry well right here where one doesn't exist,
Right.
which is close to the resource area, and we're saying, okay, we're worried about chemicals and things from de-icing and what might be on the driveway getting into your dry well, which is close to the resource area. So if we can get some treatment
You
before
wouldn't
getting
worry
into
as
that
much.
dry well, then, we can accommodate the need.
So that doesn't change your plan. Sorry.
He seems to be fairly limited in his location.
Right, but we could look at options as well.
There's really, the buffer zone kind of takes off a lot, like the left half of the property, and then you need a 25-foot setback from the septic system. So really, the only other option would be,
Can't go up there.
Sticking it near the well, and you don't want to do that.
yes, exactly.
It's not going up
You're
there.
very limited,
That's not gonna,
very limited.
Yeah, when we looked at it,
We're all
there was
in
only the
agreement
one option for the location.
Yeah, and
Unfortunately.
yeah, and if if you were to come there when there's a lot of water coming off, it's mostly water coming off the hill, and just coming off the roof of the house that's sort of building up there. So I'm putting gutters on to sort of try and fix some of the drainage issue, as well as do this. But yeah.
sure.
Is the drain line perforated? Because if this was perforated between your drains and the dry well, you'd get some infiltration over the course of it, it's still now, you're talking 50 to 70 feet from the resource area instead of 35, 40 feet. That would improve it a little bit and without any additional cost. Right? It's not pre-treatment or anything, but.
Is it perforated or not? Or are you asking?
That's what I was asking.
Okay.
I don't know. I couldn't see it. Couldn't tell.
Sorry, I believe that the only perforated pipe would be in the foundation drain. Yeah,
So you get some infiltration from that right next to the house, and that water doesn't drag, doesn't go, that infiltrated water doesn't go all the way to the dry well. If that main line, the main drain was perforated, you could also get infiltration along that route. You get that much less water going 35 feet from the pond.
I think the only issue with that would be that then the majority, if we were trying to infiltrate along the foundation, that would also be where the majority of our storage would be, and where we are having water
Issues.
yeah, water entering the foundation. I don't think we want to try and store the water at the same location where it's currently entering the foundation.
You're saying the drain goes right along where the water problem is?
Yes.
Yeah, see,
Yeah,
We want to take it all the way.
yeah, we're trying to take it away from that
Yeah.
area.
It's a good idea until you start.
which was the question?
The orange.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so when you look at this place here,
yeah.
so the water, off my roof is building up right in this corner. And then there's already a big wall with gravel and whatever was put in there for drainage and holes in the wall. But the water is just building up in front of it all over here, and it's causing the front stoop to sag and basically needs to be rebuilt. So, that's the reason why we're trying to just adjust this at this point. It's to fix this piece of the puzzle that for whatever reason doesn't
Totally
work.
get that.
Is that mostly water off the roof?
Yeah.
Well, it's water off the roof, but, as Matt was saying, there's water that just comes in from this area and, runs down the sidewalk and into
But the
It's
water-
like ponds right there.
All the
Ponds.
impervious
It sits there.
Yeah.
With the water off the roof, you might look into a rain barrel. If you have the flower bed right there, you could use that to water your flower bed, and that way you're holding the water that comes off your roof.
Yeah,
And not
that's the-
using water from your.
That's the gutters are the easy part, right? It's just, I wanna make sure that I don't have the, if I'm gonna rebuild my stoop, I wanna
Well, I
make sure it
think we-
doesn't collapse again.
Want to help you, and I think
Yeah.
we're in agreement that we can accommodate you if we can maybe get some treatment to that dry well.
I can certainly look into options for treatment.
Great.
And, I'm thinking we're gonna be able to come up with a solution here.
Okay.
So, with that said,
Continue.
we'll just continue this to the 27th, and hopefully we can just, at that point, finish this, public hearing and, issue one.
Sure. Can draft one up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So, can I have a motion then, continue this public hearing until April 27th?
So moved.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our 7:25 PM agenda item, which is a public hearing continued for 12 Weedamo Way. And the applicant has requested a continuance without discussion till April 27th. Can I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our 7:30 PM agenda item, which is a public hearing for 28 Green Needles Road and 2 Fellows Lane.
Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, April 13th, 2022, at 7:30 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the notice of intent application to Jeffrey and Allison Sacknowitz, Michael Broderick, and Lincoln Alexander, and Mark and Amy Fellows for the use of benthic mats for aquatic plant management within Forge Pond at 14 Pleasant Street, 28 Green Needles Road, and 2 Fellows Lane.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Ken?
Okay, all right, thank you. I'm David Barr. I'm head of Friends of Forge Pond, which is the respondent for the notice of intent. I'm also a member of the Westford Health Lakes and Ponds Collaborative. Tonight, applicants with me are Mike Broderick, Jeff Saknowitz, and Mark Fellows.
Evening, gentlemen.
If you'd like, I can give you a couple-minute introduction, or you can just
No,
jump in.
I think we're familiar with pond, I think we're familiar with how benthic mats work. I know, Jim, you had a question in regards to the benthic mats.
Yeah, a number of things, from reading the proposal and the plan for our pilot project, gave me the impression that it was sort of an experiment to determine how well this worked. But none of the variables are constrained in any way, like, as far as the material you're gonna propose to use for the benthic mats, it's left up to the property owner. As far as the installation date, that's left up to the property owner. As far as the time you're gonna remove it, that's left up to the property owner. As far as the size of the mats, except it has to be less than 600 square feet, that's left up to the property owner. And then at the end of it, we have no idea to say whether this worked or not, because there's no measurements of the aquatic plant life you're trying to eliminate before the application of the benthic mats, nor after, when they're taken out, if they're ever taken out. So I think you gotta put some constraints on it so that you can see, does this work? Is it working well? Does it take 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, whatever length of time you wanna try, you should try a couple of things like that. I think maybe the duration of the installation might be the first variable you might wanna work with. But everything that I was reading seems like it leaves it all open to, pretty much use anything you want, whenever you want, for as long as you want. And there's no measurements of whether it worked or not.
And I think that concerned us because we certainly didn't want to put the benthic mats down the barrier and then have it left there in perpetuity.
Right.
Because that's not the intent.
Yeah, so we haven't used, so it's been, benthic mats, you're right, have been used in a lot of places, and they're pretty effective. They haven't been used on Forge Pond before, at least not officially, not that we know of, right? And so we wanted to try it here and let people that were interested give it a go and see. They know what their areas are normally like. These are, waterfront owners that know what their waterfront is like normally. And so they would know when they put it down and then took it back up, how well it worked for them. If you feel it's useful to constrain and say, we can allow these materials, only these materials, and in these configurations and in these timeframes, then we can make those stipulations, then people would choose among the things that are required. But the thought was, just like the federal government, let the states try it, see what works, and then what works will, look to adopting in the future.
Well, how about you propose, or, instead of us proposing a time limit on this, perhaps you come to us and say, okay, as of a certain date, this is when we'd like to apply the benthic mats, and, by a certain date, this is when they should be removed.
The literature you provided said that like 1 to 2 months is oftentimes enough in the springtime to stunt the growth and prevent the spread. If that's the case, then maybe use 1 or 2 months. Not, but right now it's listed as.
It's open-ended.
It's open-ended.
Well, so it's not exactly open-ended. I mean, what we said was that anything that's not biodegradable would have to be removed by October 1st. It could be stated sooner, but, and I doubt, I think unless it's, so for materials like that, I don't think people would want to leave it in all summer, because then you've got, this mat on your waterfront that, is not as pleasant to be on as the sand beach. So, I mean, we did say it's going to be out if you think it, if we want to
It's actually
be.
contradictory. In one location in the paper, it talks about the October deadline, but in the other place where it goes by all the characteristics, it just says it's up to the landowner when they remove it.
Oh, well, with that constraint.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, so if we want to be more prescriptive, we can.
If the papers that you provided said with a couple of months is usually plenty, right?
Yeah,
Yes, but you also could have different size. Someone may just get a smaller mat and put it down for a month and move it for another month and move it for another month.
Okay, so in each place that it's put in, let's say it's 1 month,
Yeah.
then you have data that tells you how well it worked for
Yeah.
1 month, and then you move it and it keeps
Yeah.
there 1 month. Then you have a data for when it's where it's applied in April, another one when it's applied in May, another one when it's
Yeah.
applied in June.
Mhm.
And then you can find out which one works best. The other idea of what a pilot program is something you expect to scale up. And I expect that it's not just gonna be the 3 sites in Westford and, what is it, 4 in Littleton or 2 in Littleton?
4.
4 and 3, okay, the 7 sites now. I assume that if this works well, if some part of it works well, that it would probably expand and other homeowners would wanna use the same sort of features that. you guys-
Potentially,
Okay,
right,
all right,
yeah.
that sounds good to me too. You just need to know, what you're gonna try to verify, what are you gonna try to make work?
I guess the plan was to let each homeowner kind of choose based on their terrain, their waterfront, their weeds, what they think would work best, and then, they do their own research, and then we'd come back and collect and say, you did this, I did it this month, and I used this type of stuff, and it worked real well, and then we'd just look at all the things and
I
put them all
don't think
together.
that's a scientific enough approach for us to
Well-
move forward with a pilot program.
Yeah.
Let everybody just do what they want, and, there's no real metrics or anything to really evaluate.
Did it work?
Margaret?
Well, I see your points, and I kind of see a middle that says if the homeowners kind of have a sense of which one they'd like to try, it's at the beginning, each homeowner says which one they'd like to do and what their plan is for the specifics of their site. Take some pictures of before, so we've got visual evidence of what it looked like before you put the mats down. They've got a plan that says, okay, I'm doing this size mat, I'm gonna put one here for a month, and then this is what I'm going to do next, so that we know beforehand what they're going to try, and then it becomes easier to look at it after the fact and see what their results were.
Evaluate, yeah.
So then you've collected data, so you have a lot of, you have the information to kind of make assessments that said, in this situation, this worked well. Maybe it didn't work well over here, but you've kind of got enough data that you can say, okay, for round 2, now what do we look at where we think we can tweak things and maybe get better results? Does that make sense?
So, yeah, that's fine. We can we can collect the information from the participants as to what they're planning and let you know specifically what they're planning. The advantage to that, I guess, is that you would know ahead of time what's going to be done, and you could see that it's acceptable to you.
And we could measure it after and agree, this is really great,
Yeah, so,
And it would be, it would
And that way, you're
quantify
not
it,
trying
yeah.
to ask
It would
people to remember
quantify it.
what they did.
Yeah,
You've
we're not
got a
against
plan
it,
that
it's
they
just-
said, this is what this is what Pleasant Street's gonna do, this is what Green Needle's gonna do. And so then, after the fact, you can kind of evaluate. You don't have to tap people and say, do you remember what you did? Because it's all laid out.
I got it, yeah. So, I mean, one of the things we listed in there was coordination by the Friends of Porch Pond, and one of the things we said we'd be doing, in addition to working with the participants and letting them, giving them information, giving them the guidance, giving them the orders of conditions so that they know what they had to be doing, was that the Friends of Porch Pond would be documenting what they're doing and generating report about, here's what was done here, here's how it worked, here's what was done here, here's how it worked. So, yeah, in order to do that, we need to be, as it's happening, documenting.
Yeah, and then,
So if we want to do that beforehand, we can do that too.
Well, you gotta collect something beforehand so you have a baseline.
you need an assessment of what does the weeds look like in each location, and then,
What approach they're taking.
what approach to take, because that way you can also see, are people trying different things as opposed to everybody says, oh, I want to use this mat. So, it's.
That was the idea behind letting them make
Yeah,
their own
and
choices.
and they can make those choices, but I think we want to see what it
I
is
think we'd
before
be
they
much
put them
more
in the
comfortable
ground.
if we had
On the ground.
something that we could quantify. And then
So,
look at it again.
I
We're not
mean,
against it, don't hear that as
yeah.
a negative.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you're not asking us to wait until next year to do this.
No, we're not.
But, well, so, I mean, the reason I say that is because generally speaking, we would like we said, in the notice of intent, beginning of May is a good time to put them down and, take them out beginning of June. And it's a good time because the plants haven't started to grow yet. You can, it's easier to put them down. The water's cold. People generally aren't doing that much, in the waterfront at that point. And then by the time you take it out, that's when people want to be out there and
We
using
have
it.
an April 27th meeting, so.
Yeah, and, you've got to
Good timeline.
procure the mats and stuff like that, so it's kind
Yeah.
of like things could be happening in parallel.
Sorry, my point there was that the beginning of May, when we put things down, there's not that much growing. You're not gonna have
You're
a,
not gonna be able to see what you're trying to do.
you're not gonna say, here's the before. The before is in the homeowner's understanding of, this is what my waterfront is normally like.
But during the course of the year, in a month.
Around it, you
right,
can
in
see.
a month, you're gonna see, what the actual.
Yeah, what it looks
What,
like.
what was on the edges?
Right,
You
yeah.
have, you have.
This is your mat and you place it in, out today, right next to it is untreated. So
Yep, yep.
Then in 2 months, when you remove the mat, you have a direct comparison
Mm-hmm.
between untreated and what this mat worked, whether it
Right.
was burlap or plastic or whatever.
Yeah,
But we can't do the pictures before, I think is what Dave's trying to say, because if we wait till the pictures before.
We
get
understand
approval.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we put it after, so.
The other thing to point out is we have to order these things, it takes a few weeks or maybe a month to get them, so.
But we would still have something concrete that said,
Sure.
Yeah.
sort of a
We need a
baseline.
little
We
leeway.
really want to accommodate you.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
which we appreciate.
Yeah.
so
we
it
will.
it sounds like you would like us to identify what each of the different sites would be doing before we move forward.
Well, I mean, I think that's
think
the
That's a yes.
Yeah.
That's a yes.
And
Yeah, that's fine.
And
it's,
you could do that on the 27th, I'm sure.
but reading through the material, it also
Yeah.
talked about, it talked about if you're putting it down and there's rocks or there's branches, is one of the things that the picture takes, is it all, take your picture beforehand, you also get to see, are there anomalies in the surface that you're putting the mat down over, and how does that potentially affect, there's a lot involved, this is, we're doing it for the first time, and so kind of the more data you can gather,
Yeah.
the more you may find useful down the road.
Yeah, pictures might not work, but if there were objects like that, they could be sort of mapped.
Yes.
The lake is dark, it's
Do the
hard to,
best you can.
yeah,
That's true.
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
And we're okay with that, as long as the effort has been made.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So then we,
So we can identify for each of the sites what the participants plan to be doing.
yeah, and, are they gonna do small mats and move them around, or
Yeah.
is it a larger mat? It's kind of the parameters of each, the parameters of each experiment, so to speak.
Yeah.
and when you summarize at the end, then you know, we didn't count on that, or we didn't, and you'll
Right.
be learning.
Yeah,
We'll be
well,
learning
yeah,
with you.
and I mean, there's a caveat, I mean, it may be that, people plan to do this and this and this, and when they go to put it in, they can't exactly do that, but they're basically doing that.
Yeah, but that's still learning that you say,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
next year our
yeah.
plan will be better.
Right.
But at least that gives us some idea of what
Right,
they're planning.
right.
As
yeah.
opposed to,
Exactly.
Does that sound fair?
Yes,
Yeah, I
yes,
think that's
Okay.
Sure.
Tracked it very well, yeah.
okay.
And so
Anything-
this has been filed with Littleton, as there are four
right, so,
sites
yeah, so
over there.
we were yesterday, we were with Littleton Conservation Commission.
So in speaking with their conservation agent, we were looking to kind of draft special conditions that worked, not have a Westford order of conditions and a Littleton order of
Okay.
conditions. Have special conditions that work for both commissions. So with the commission's permission, I'd like to work with
That's fine.
to
That's fine.
develop it, to make sure that we have.
I know, I
one
asked you earlier, and you said you weren't
A
able to
unified
log
plan.
into the Littleton meeting, but what came out of the Littleton discussion?
It was good. They had some questions. They didn't have as much understanding or experience with benthic mats as I think you do. And so they had a lot of questions about just, how it worked and what the effects were and that sort of thing. And then we ran out of time and it was continued.
So then it works for 27th.
Yes, it does.
So it
Yeah,
should-
we're
we should be-
continued to
we
the
should be fine.
26th for them.
We should be fine.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
So,
can we
any
continue?
additional questions from the commission or the audience before I continue this public hearing? Seeing none, can I have a motion to continue the public hearing until April 27th?
Moved.
Second?
All's in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Very good, thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
Thanks for coming prepared and knowing what benthic mats are. It really helped the discussion. Appreciate it all.
My thought was, will they get two of them on NAB?
Thank you.
These are just colored, large scale plans.
Thank you.
Sure. You know, I have,
See, it's like the newspaper.
Okay, we're gonna
Can't do this on
move
the
on
computer.
to our 7:40 PM agenda item, which is a public hearing for 3 Mark Vincent Drive.
Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, April 13th, 2022, at 7:40 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the notice of intent application of Cheryl and John Baisdell for the regrading, loaming, and seeding of the backyard, removal, relocation of a portion of the picket fence, and installation of additional 4-foot vinyl fencing, relocation of the 12-by-8 shed, reconstruction of stairs at the rear of the house, and installation of a retaining wall and underground propane tank within 100 feet of bordering vegetated wetlands and bordering land subject to flooding within 200 feet of a perennial stream at 3 Mark Vincent Drive.
Hi, good evening.
Evening.
Maureen Harold, Norris Environmental Services, here on behalf of the applicant. So to just give you an idea of what's going on with the plan. So the green colored line, that's the bordering vegetated wetland. As mentioned, we have a 100-year floodplain that's at elevation 203.4. That's in a mustard type color. Follows the wetland line for the most part, does go up gradient a little bit. The erosion controls are colored in an orange. We do have a perennial stream, Butter Brook, located at the rear of the property. We show the inner riparian, or 100-foot riverfront area in a pink, and the 200-foot expands beyond the lot itself. So the entire lot's located within the 200-foot riverfront area. We do show the 100-foot buffer zone, colored in yellow. Again, that's practically encompassing the entire lot. Essentially, what we'd like to do is level out the rear backyard portion that's there, that's existing lawn. We're not proposing to cut any trees or anything of that nature. What we'd like to do is grade it out and make it fairly flat. The homeowners are fortunate enough to have grandchildren. They'd like to utilize their backyard area. So the intent is to grade it, loam, and seed it. In addition, we're requesting to remove a picket fence, relocate the shed. The present shed, its existing location is fairly close to the wetland. We are proposing to relocate it up gradient 33 feet from the closest wetland flag, which is number 11A. In addition, at the rear of the dwelling, we'd like to incorporate a landscape wall and reconstruct some stairs behind the house as well. The riverfront regulations does have some exemptions for accessory use to single-family dwellings. That's been mentioned in the notice of intent. Certainly, the landscape wall and the stairs and even the shed would meet it. Essentially, we'd just like to improve the overall property, if possible. And I'd like to open it up to the commission with any questions or concerns.
So there's a straw wattle line, which looks to be the edge of work line, I'm assuming,
That's correct.
which is like right up to the wetlands in some locations. What's it currently right now? Is that lawn all the way up to the resource area right now?
For the most part. So you can see on the plan, there's that scalloped line area. That's the edge, that's the tree line itself. So we're proposing it along the tree line.
Which is the tree line?
It's kind of, in places, it's hard to see where there's the
yeah.
tree line.
If everything's all at the same place.
Yeah, okay, I see.
Yeah.
You can see it? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it almost looks like the tree line juts out here a little bit along, So where there's that, what looks like, is this the fence that's in black?
Yes, that's where we'd like to relocate it.
Okay, and so is that along the edge of the tree line there?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so the trees come out this far here.
So we're not proposing to remove any trees. Again, just trying to improve the backyard area.
And so when you say you're regrading, how much material are you bringing in, or, you know, right now you're saying it's currently lawn with is it a gentle slope, a steep slope? I go, you know, I'm trying to
like a gentle
understand the
slope.
necessity to do this close to the resource area when it's already grassed, and you're simply trying to level it to make it flatter. So, and I'm not really seeing the steepness
So-
of the grade.
So we show the existing topography, we're grading it to the 206, which is proposed somewhat in front of the existing shed, kind of along the 30-foot buffer. The backyard is kind of pit and mound and just uneven, and we're not proposing to expand the backyard. That's not the intent. We're not proposing to clear any trees. We're just proposing to level out the backyard that's already existing lawn and just level it out and restore it back to lawn again.
And no lawn irrigation?
No lawn irrigation. So,
Again, I'm really not seeing the you know, the necessity. I don't see the steepness of the grade. I understand you're saying you're trying to level off and make it flat, but it's not like it's unusable in its present state at all.
Well, and I guess what you're saying is that
It undulates.
it undulates as opposed to slopes.
right. And so essentially, it's just a matter of improving the backyard area. Again, we're not expanding the lawn area, we'd just like to improve it so the young grandchildren can utilize it without falling and injuring themselves.
Matt, have you been out here?
I have. Go ahead.
I mean, I could use a picture I mean, is it really undulating to the point where it makes it unusable? It just does not seem it from this picture.
I mean,
Or
it
from
certainly.
what I've seen.
Yes, I mean, I don't think the actual topography, the actual as I think that was a great use of it, is undulation and pit and mound. I don't think that is picked up on kind of the macro level topography that's being shown. It certainly is, and it seemed to be perpendicular across, perpendicular to the wetland resource line. As kind of the undulations, how they were.
So that it's like this, so you're looking across an undulation down at the wetlands.
You're looking, if your back is at the wetland line, looking up gradient, you are looking up and the undulations go from left to right.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're looking across a piece of corrugation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So beyond that, we have this proposed landscape wall here that comes, and this proposed landscape wall is necessary, why?
Just to level out that area as well as reconstruct the stairs in that location.
Well, I don't see why the wall.
Right now, the bottom, the last stair is about 18 to 24 inches to the ground. It's a very, the step, I think, has, eroded away over time. And so the property owner, when I originally met out with her, wanted to rotate the stairs 90 degree and add this landscaping wall so that the stairs weren't going down the pitch. It wasn't adding to the steps going up.
So is this addressing a long-term erosion problem?
I don't think it was erosion. I just think it may have been
design problem?
Yeah, that, you know, when the house originally went in, I don't,
The house,
Is there another way to remedy it though, besides putting a retaining wall within 13 feet of the resource area? I mean, I don't care if it's grassed or not.
I mean,
I'm putting in, a retaining wall within 13 feet of the resource area that's not there.
I mean,
As opposed to reconfiguring steps or doing something that may be just as, suitable without putting in that retaining wall.
right, I understand.
So it's more of a landscape wall, and I can certainly show that the height of the wall. It's not shown on the plan, but you can see the 208 contour.
Yeah.
Up gradient of that would be 209. So it's gonna be maybe a foot. I don't want the commission to be under the impression that we're putting a 6-foot tall
Yeah, it's hard to
retaining
tell,
wall.
yeah, I can't tell that from
So
the plan, okay.
it's
Saying it's
it's
a
more or
foot?
less like a landscape.
Like a timber, or it's not poured concrete or anything like that?
I'm not sure what the material will be.
about
I
we-
wouldn't want a timber, just because it may
I don't
rot.
think we're gonna want poured concrete.
What
Well,
about
I-
a nice stone landscape wall? Nice
Like the
stone New
kind of
England
the
wall.
block.
Or the old-fashioned stone walls.
Stones.
Well, if it's only a foot high, it doesn't need to be block.
no, it could just be
I mean, they could
rocks.
just use stone.
So Cheryl's here, and
Old-fashioned
she's the
stone wall.
homeowner,
I'm
and
sorry.
she may.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I was supposed to come up or not. It's not meant to be poured concrete. It was gonna be concrete blocks, then filled with like dirt or something to hold them in, more or less a landscape wall, like she said. And the reason for it is because we're not gonna change the pitch coming away from the house down to the wetland. So if we don't change that pitch, then it's gonna be a really steep drop off for anybody that walks even in the backyard.
Just doesn't seem to be that, I
Well-
just don't see the grading as being that steep, but go ahead.
I'm thinking this is where we may want to see the design details, so that says what's the reveal upslope and what's the reveal downslope, because looking at this plan, we don't know, whether it's a foot, whether it's 6 feet, and so I think as part of the plan plan of record, we would want to see what the dimensions are to kind of get a sense of, this is just, something to help keep the area level.
Yeah, that we're all of the same understanding.
Yeah. And so we've got something to show the builder.
So we can certainly add the top of wall, the bottom of wall, so that it's clearly noted on the plan, the actual size of it. That's not a problem.
And sir, when you asked the question about is the backyard really that bad?
Yeah.
So from the house down to the wetlands, in parts it is a little, it's hard to walk on. You're walking at an angle, but that's not really the problem. The problem is, like Matt said, when he walked the yard with me, it's really from left to right. It goes up and down quite a bit as you get over to the left side of the backyard.
Plan left.
The plan line. It really takes a dip over there and has holes, and it looks like at some point prior to when I bought the house, it looks like there might have been trees there that somebody took out like a long time ago, and the roots kind of sunk in, so you can't
could
walk
have
over
ground
them.
them or whatever, and over time, when you grind a stump, all of a sudden, you get that depression over years from.
Right, and it's just so uneven, we can't even,
So you couldn't
it's-
ride a bicycle on it.
you can't even walk over there, actually, because you have to look down the entire time you're walking, because you dip in and out very, very,
So when you regrade,
frequently.
are you looking to bring material in? Are you simply grading the existing lawn area?
we're hoping not to have to bring in anything, because if we smooth it this way, we're hoping to bring some of the loom from the, the right side over to the other
Pressed
side.
into the trough.
Yeah, but we did allow for, in our plan, if we had to bring in some, because the end game is to have it be even this way, and not really change the pitch going down towards the wetlands. Yeah, the plans from the landscaper, I think he put right in it.
I don't have those
You
plans
don't have
with
those,
me.
okay.
If you sent them to me, I don't have them.
What do you think, guys? Go ahead, Jim.
Could you show us, using the pointer there, where the fence would be when it's
Yellow
done?
button on,
I know, I have a hard time even recognizing that as my backyard. That's why Maureen's
Okay,
here.
so The new fence will go like this, around, and we're gonna relocate
Where those
this
squares
fence.
are, connected
down.
squares.
This is all being removed here.
Correct.
That part, yeah.
Where's the, that's just ends right there?
No, there's an existing vinyl fence going
That's gonna
along.
remain?
No, they're removing that, I think.
No,
No.
we're just removing this one right here.
Oh, they're leaving that
Oh,
existing.
okay.
We're
We didn't
gonna
even
go
under,
from-
we didn't understand
All
that.
the gate over here, all the way along, essentially along the limit of work.
That's staying,
Right.
Yeah.
The tree,
All the way
the
here and then
existing
go-
tree line.
Okay, all right,
then I don't have
Okay.
that trouble.
thank you.
Margaret?
And where exactly is the buried propane tank gonna go?
Well, we
So-
hadn't
Yeah.
decided yet, but
So they show an approximate location, where the heck is it?
Yeah,
yeah,
right back
the
there.
arrow right
Right.
there,
So-
Yes.
Is that inside or outside the 55-foot?
It is inside
It's
the
in just
55.
inside the
Kissing
55.
inside the 55. But we also have the pool that's upgrading of that as well.
Yeah, propane tanks in the ground bother me. I'm not saying that they're wrong, it's just, that's one of the things I'd rather have farther away than closer.
Well, it would be underground, so, I mean, it would essentially dig a hole, put it underground and,
You know how big the tank is?
no.
Did you find that out?
Sure.
I mean, what do you use the propane for? To heat?
It heats,
that?
it heats my house and the pool.
Okay. It's bigger than one of those 120-gallon bottles then.
We actually have
Yeah.
3. Well, actually, we have 4, they, already above ground. So we're looking to get rid of 2 and only bury 1.
Is that gonna be a challenge that the truck pulls into your driveway and then he's gotta snake a hose all the way over?
Now it is, yes.
Well, not where I meant where the buried
Oh,
one's
no,
gonna
no,
go.
it'll be easier for them. Because I have 2 right behind my house and I have 2 behind my pool.
Okay.
So, right now, he has to drag the hose, up through the backyard, through the gate that runs through the middle of the backyard, and then pull it back up.
Okay, I'm just thinking about if he's gotta make a delivery when there's snow on the ground.
Oh, no, it's gonna be much closer than what he's doing right now.
Oh, okay.
To be honest with you, it was their recommendation, so,
So Jim, I've got grading, I've got a landscape retaining wall, I've got buried propane tanks. Those are the 3 issues I see.
Where's the septic system?
in the front of the house.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's my best guess.
I'm wondering if
There's only so many.
It's in the front yard, yes.
There's only
It's
so
right
many
off
places
of
it can be.
where it says, where the word porch is in the front, it's directly out in front of that, but in the
So we
grassy.
want to know
Okay.
the size of the tank going in. We want a little better schematic or drawing of their proposed landscape wall. And then there's the issue, okay, we're gonna be removing the located shed, and I think the new shed location is fine.
The soils are just gonna be regraded, not new soil brought in or old soil taken out, just regraded.
Well, we're not taking any soil out. We may, when they grade it, we might have to bring in some more. The guess right now from the landscaper is that we hopefully won't need to as we level out the land, but in order to make it level, we don't want to get to the point where we need a little bit more and can't bring
Well,
it
I
in.
guess to the extent possible, we like it to be
Same
graded
materials.
with what's existing and to the, uses least, or use the least amount of new fill as you would need to.
Yeah, he did estimate in the plan, so I can get that for you as well.
And I think that's the goal of the homeowner. I mean, you don't wanna spend more money on fill than you have to, especially nowadays.
I'd like
Well,
to,
It isn't the money.
a lot of people, when
Yeah,
it
that
comes
is
to their
what we
lawns,
see.
it's really precious to them, and
Oh,
they'll
yeah.
fill in grade and put in whatever. So while I appreciate you being minimalistic in the approach, that's not always the case.
yeah, here, it is the case though, because our front yard is picture perfect. The backyard, we just need it to be usable, so we really just want to move it around to make it so that anybody can walk in the backyard, and especially little ones.
I've got no trees being removed, nothing like that.
No, I pointed out a tree to Matt when he was there that may or may not be dead. Along the tree line at the very back, it's a tree that's on its side. But we figured that if we, when the time came, we need to confirm that it's dead to remove it, we would do it.
And one improvement, the shed moved from 20 foot to outside 30.
It's a plus.
Noah?
I would like to see at the very least within the 30-foot buffer, anything reseeded to be a native species. As possible.
What, grass?
Yeah, like a,
I don't know if they're gonna do that. I think they just wanna put grass for grass.
That's the proposal.
I heard what
I'd
you
rather
said.
see a native species in there as it's that close to the wetland.
Native species in terms of, are you
Like a ground
think,
cover, like a
like a
clover.
wet meadow
That's what
mix,
she's
or?
saying, that instead of grass, she was wanting to see some sort of ground cover.
Like a
But you wanna
like clover.
maintain it as grass to be used,
Instead
right?
of grass.
Right, I
Yeah.
mean, the house was built in 77 and the fence has been back there, so the hope was that we're just restoring the lawn area.
I just like to see as little
Oh, I
grass
hear
as
ya.
possible.
I hear you. Any other questions from the commission? Questions from the audience?
Eric, when you were summarizing the points,
Yeah?
the proposed landscape wall, there was that idea, how tall, was that on your list, how tall on the inside?
Yeah, they were gonna give us a schematic.
Okay, okay.
Did you have our bullet list?
I think so, the wall, the propane tank, you wanna know the size. We heard native herbaceously within the 30-foot, and I think that was it. Was that it?
The estimate of grading of fill. The,
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I can get that. Thank you.
I think that's all we have.
Okay.
So we should, with that, we should be able to continue and close our next meeting and we should. Any other questions before? Seeing none, can I have a motion to continue the public hearing until April 27th?
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Sometimes it's hard to see what you're describing when you're looking at something 2D like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our 7:50 PM agenda item, which is a public hearing for 75 Granton Road.
Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, April 13th, 2022, at 7:50 PM in Meeting Room 201, Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the request for determination of applicability application of Devon Cody for replacement and relocation of the leaching field of the existing failing septic system and relocating portions of the driveway within 100 feet of bordering vegetative wetlands at 75 Groton Road.
Good evening. Jeff Hannaford, representing the applicant at 75 Groton Road. Before I start, some new information came to me this afternoon, so I'd like to pass a couple of things out.
Sure. Should we be referring to this and not what we have in our packet?
Correct.
Okay.
It's minor, but
No, that's fine.
make sure
Just don't wanna get
we
people
were
confused.
discussing the latest and greatest.
Thank you.
There you go. So this one started out fairly straightforward and had become quite a bit more involved for a
Challenging.
septic repair. Yes, a real challenge. We went out, we did our soil testing. When we went out there, we discussed with the homeowner where things were based on the best available information we could find on record. And after the soil testing, we went out and did our survey of the property. We found that the eastern or right-hand property line, as you're looking at it, was actually some 20 to 25 feet to the west or into my client's property than he thought, or that his neighbor to the east thought. Right. So what we found was after that, and we overlaid the as-built information on the existing failed system, that at least half or a little bit more of the existing system is actually on the neighbor's property, which is where we were planning on putting the new one. What compounded the problem with that is when it was dig safe for the soil testing, the gas line was just to the west of the septic system, right between the septic system and the driveway.
You can see the line.
Yes. So that's why we needed to replace the system, we thought, in the same area as the existing because of the gas line. So once we found out the real property line, the discussions began with the owner and the neighbor. At first, the plan was to gain an easement from the neighbor and be able to put the septic system there, to the point where I had done a preliminary design, created an easement plan for their discussion. As it went through both of the owner's attorneys and review, the neighbor decided it wasn't in their best interest to move in that direction. So with that, the only thing I could come up with for my client was the gas line would have to be moved. We met out there with a representative from National Grid Gas. They looked at the situation and said, well, then what we need to do is we need to move it to the other side of the driveway and bring it into the gas meter around the other side of the house, or the west side of the house. So with that, not only were we moving a gas line, now we're digging up the driveway. So as you can see, things have kind of snowballed, and here we are. So with all of that work, the owner, and it's a little hard to tell on that small plan, but the existing driveway, if we leave it where it is, a portion or one edge of the system would be under the driveway, so we'd have to dig the driveway up anyway. There are some cracks in the pavement, it's old, so my client said, well, if I'm digging up for a gas line and I have to remove a portion to fit a septic system, let's just shift it over a few feet and repave that area when we're done. So we're here now, not only for the leach field in the buffer zone, but there's going to be a portion of the driveway that'll be cut and repaved. What changed what changed today on the plan that you see in front of you, that you have in your packets, is I had thought that they were just going to remove the driveway all the way to the street and work back in. But I was told they were going to saw cut 20 feet from the street and leave the existing curb cut pavement where it is and just work from 20 feet in towards the house. When I did a takeoff on the area, because the driveway has a curve to it, we're actually going to straighten it out slightly, which means it's going to be a tad shorter. So effectively, they're going to save about 30 square feet of impervious, not much, but at the very least, it's going to be at existing or slightly less. So we're not increasing any impervious area. There'll be erosion control installed mainly for the gas line work. If you look closely at the topography, just to the west of the driveway, there's actually a knoll there. So the knoll separates the driveway from the wetlands, so there can't be any erosion or siltation in that direction as it slopes back towards the driveway from the knoll. Yeah. And it's actually, it doesn't show well on this, but along the right-hand property line, that's actually a tad higher, maybe only 6 inches to a foot higher than the driveway, but it is. So the driveway actually just has a very slight slope from the house towards the street, fairly flat. So the wetlands are fairly well protected just by the existing topography, except for when you get around that back corner of the house is when it starts to slope. So that's why we have the erosion control in that area for the gas line.
Jim? I understand the difficulty of the plan you're trying to squeeze in here. I don't know if this is a possibility, but it could help with not having to hack up the driveway or move the gas line. Could you move the picture up a little bit, Matt? Okay. How much space is there in here? I know this is a 4x11, so you got like 44 chambers up there. Is there room here enough for 3 rows of 15 in this area, right next to the?
Yeah, I looked at that, Jim, and it doesn't show well, but it's sloping pretty
I
significantly.
looked at the contour lines. There's an 81 foot here and an 81 foot right through this one also, so they're.
Right, as you go back towards that lower right corner of the property, it drops significantly.
From the plan, it looks like they're both 80, 81 feet.
Actually,
I mean, this area down here, you can't see it up here, but there's.
right, see those contours to your right?
There's one right here that's 80 feet.
Yep, keep going to your right.
Over here?
Over, yeah, and go up. Yeah, there's another contour that stops. It's not continued because we didn't do a full survey of that area thinking we weren't right. So I don't have the topography from a survey, except that when we walked that area, it was clearly, we'd be doing a lot of filling, trying to.
It's possible that this, if you change the dimensions instead of 4x11, 3x15, that you could fit it in here, have enough distance from the house. This is 10 feet, you want to keep it at least 10 feet away, and you want to keep it 10 feet from the neighbor's yard, is that it? Is that the health?
Yeah, the problem we would have is because of the slope, the topography, and the fact that we can't, you always want to try and run the length, the long dimension of the system parallel to the contours. In this case, because of the 100-foot well offset in the property line, we have to run it parallel to the property line, which is actually perpendicular to the topography.
The 100-foot distance was also one more thing that would benefit for trying to squeeze it in here, because here's your 100-foot buffer, and right now you're at 70 feet.
Oh, yeah, believe me, I looked at it, but it would force us to, in order to create a level area, it would force us to put in retaining walls along the property line and along the back edge, and the offsets that we need from the well and the offsets that we need from the system to the retaining wall and the retaining wall to the property line doesn't allow that to fit between it. I know you're looking at just the system without retaining walls, but if I add the retaining walls and the setbacks, now we have an even wider system that won't fit between the 100-foot well and the property line. So that one I had to rule out. Again, if the property line were 20 feet over where they thought it was, but, yeah, as a matter of fact, we walked back there, and I think one of the conditions Matt's interested in is down in that lower area, they were using it to dump.
I think the previous owners were stockpiling brush and stuff there, so.
And the 4x11 field that you're proposing be moved slightly to the south? It's still parallel with your contour lines, and it'll move it a little further away from the 70 foot that you got from the wetlands.
Yeah, moving it south, I could do that. There is a turnaround in the driveway I'd like to stay out of, but
Oh, is that
I
what that
don't
was the
think
reason?
that's gaining anything, Jim, because I still think he's gonna have a portion, even if you move that leach field south,
Yep, it'll
it's
be-
still gonna have a point that's still 70 feet.
No, as soon as you start moving it to the south, the 70-foot vector.
Yeah, and then it
it's
opens
longer.
up, I get
Yes,
that.
Yeah.
I can see why he can't put it more south, because he's right. When I measured over, 100 feet from that well is gonna be sticking him into that leaching field. And I certainly would have him, I'd prefer to have him be further away from that drinking water well. Even though I'm sure it's quite deep.
oh, believe me, it was,
Jeff and I had some good conversations.
Yeah,
Imagine that owner.
I can't think of anything.
I don't know, I mean, I like what Jeff just said and his rationale for why it is where it is. I don't know if that's articulated anywhere. I'm sorry, I didn't read this. I don't know if what you said. I mean, if I could have some of that justification for why we're not putting it further south.
Why we're not 100 feet away.
In writing.
Right, because
In writing.
if I'm 100 feet away, I'm still close to his drinking water well.
Yeah, but you could put all
So
that
that's
in
the
writing.
justification for having it closer to the wetland.
yeah, I could write up
Yeah, something
a little
like
bit
that.
more
Is that-
detailed about that
It
area.
would be on record. And would be on
Yep.
record.
That's not a
So
problem.
somebody says, well, why did you allow that?
In
when
10
you could
years.
have, like Jim just pointed out. Other
we
than
get in
that,
trouble, I
I
want you.
see what you're trying to achieve, and I'm good
Yeah.
with it.
Yep.
I don't have any trouble.
No, Commission have any
He's
other?
exhausted
Just
every,
trying to find
No,
ways to do it.
I
Trying to
get
find
it.
ways to do it cheaper, that's all.
No, I get it. Any questions from the audience in regards to this request for determination?
I mean, could we
close it next time.
condition it to close it, do a conditional negative, issue it up and receive written testimony as to, why the
Okay, I
location?
can do that.
Okay.
So can I have a motion?
You're gonna essentially use that right up in the introductory section of the order of conditions, right?
Well, it's a RDA, so,
Oh,
yeah, so it would be, the condition is finding, make a condition that acts like a finding.
Okay.
So can I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Joe.
This will be a fun one.
Said if I got in trouble, I'd leave him. He does some stuff he does.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our 8 PM agenda item, which is an appointment with Jamie Holmes regarding the 5th grade Adventure Day at East Boston Camps, and a request for exclusive use during the program on June 8th, 2022. Good evening.
Good evening.
Again, for the record, just tell us who you are and why you're here this evening.
My name is Jamie Holmes. I'm here as a representative of the Westford Parent Teacher Organization. We're working with Westford Public Schools to put together a 5th grade Adventure Day, which is a spinoff of what the environmental camp, 5th grade environmental camp was prior to COVID. Looking for, what's the word? Like selective use of the camps to, just because our numbers, I know in the past, they have closed the camps to the public so that they're safer for our 5th graders and the.
Do you want exclusive use for the one day?
Exactly.
Jim?
I'm gonna vote against it.
I know.
I think you should provide,
That's you, though.
you should be providing sufficient, adequately trained, adult supervision for the children, just like you do on every field trip when the kids leave the school grounds.
Well, it will be exactly what, a field trip, but but they're not in the woods, where like loose dogs, if you saw the, thing that I put together the last time they tracked who was in there were 29 unleashed dogs, so that's not something a volunteer on a field trip would typically have to deal with.
they're breaking the law, so you should give the.
Well,
animal
I
control-
understand that,
animal
but,
Control officer or the Westford police a call if there's unattended dogs.
well, but if there are 29 of them over the course of the day, that's an issue.
Give them
So,
a call and tell them there's 5 you can see now, or 1 you can see. They'll take care of it. They will.
okay.
They'll be down there quick.
So now that Jim
Yes.
has had his say, Marilyn, Noel, Margaret, have any issues with the exclusive use for the one day?
Well, and it's not the full day, it's for what, six?
8 to,
Yeah.
well, yeah, so,
Hours.
yeah, 8
Yeah.
to 2:30.
You know, so
As a
it's
past teacher, I don't have an issue.
Yeah.
as a parent who had 2 kids go through the whole week-long thing, I think it's great that we've got this in town for the kids to enjoy.
It's a very short window.
Yes.
Yeah.
Noel?
As someone who went through the whole week-long thing, I think this is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just looking at this, so I don't have any issues with this. Do you want to make it?
Make a motion that we allow use of the 5th grade Adventure Day at East Boston Camps with the request for exclusive use during the program. From what time to what time, though?
I think it's 8 to 2:30. Did I write it in there?
So
No?
I'd want the time in it,
Okay.
8 to 2:30.
Yep, 8 to 2:30. I think in the past, because I found.
Make it 3 so they can be picked
It was 8
up.
to 3:30 was what
Okay.
was on the, again, I want what was used in 2019. I
Okay,
was
so
gonna ask.
why don't we mimic that? Why don't we mimic that? That's okay with me.
So I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And one opposed?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I need to send you that, the 3:30, or?
No, I will
Very
work
good.
with GIS department to update this and we'll get this posted, but thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our 8:05 PM agenda item, which is a public hearing continued for KC Building LLC.
They're gonna request a continuous without discussion, till the next meeting.
So can I have a motion then to continue the public hearing until April 27th?
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our 8:10 PM agenda item, which is appointment with Chestnut Hill Estates trustees regarding CR number 49, a request to remove a downed tree and a discussion of proposed land maintenance guidance.
Good evening. I'm Michael O'Hare. I'm with the Chestnut Hill Estates Trust. I am a board member. Before I get started on this down tree, I just wanted to close out last spring's meeting that we had on another issue somewhat similar related. Three things you requested that I do as a result of that meeting were the Chestnut Hill Estates Trust assign a single point of contact for the community, for the trust. I volunteered for that job. So that's why I'm here tonight. The second thing you requested was that the trust determine what we would allow on trust land as far as the neighbors go. We put together a document which has, it's up on the screen. It was done by a committee of residents, and we came up with a list of things. We specifically did not want to regulate or restate regulations. We kept it out of that. It went strictly to kind of activities that we thought were okay to attract the time. We based primarily what we were doing on the conservation restriction. There is a statement in there that says management of vegetation, including mowing of grass and cutting of woody vegetation in areas of upland open space parcels that are, as of the date of the approval, abandoned field and orchard to maintain an early succession vegetation. So we based all of our things on that statement. That was a allowance that the restriction gave to us. We used that as the basis, and this document was submitted to the board. The board approved it, and we have circulated to the residents for approval, who are for use. The third thing that you requested was that we remediate things that were, you saw through the tour that you did of the property. The lawn clippings and yard waste and stuff have been removed from the property. There was what looked to be a tree house on the property, right next to one of the ponds. We have determined that that actually existed before Chestnut Hill Estates. It was a blind that hunters used. We left it there. So we didn't do do anything with that. But other than that, we have remediated stuff. So those were three things that you had asked us to do. So one of the things that's on this document here is the removal of dead fallen trees. And so we allowed that to maintain the meadow view of things. We do have a picture, which Matt might show. This is so that one right there, that is what the down tree looks like. You may have also noticed, as I have, that we've had a lot of high winds lately. This is a 50, 60-foot white pine that just blew over. The root ball came out of the ground. It's right next to the pond, so it's wet ground there. It stands about 10 feet off the ground when it was coming out. The tree itself is 5 to 6 feet. The trunk is off the ground, pretty high. So what happened was this fell down. The resident that is directly in front of this area here cut off the trunk, and the root ball fell back into the ground. They also cut off some limbs from it. The next door neighbor had been away. The next door neighbor contacted Matt to let him know about this. Initial thought was that the tree had been cut down by the resident rather than had been blown over. So the reality is that neighbor, instead of contacting Matt, should have gone through me or gone through the board to evaluate the situation and take action on it and come to you if necessary. But you guys were involved in it, so I'm here to talk about it. So what we'd like to do, because this is pretty high off the ground, it's a little bit of an eyesore right now as well, is to have the tree removed and taken away.
So it's probably not gonna happen, but we would probably let you cut it up such that it wasn't, you know, a lot of times when a tree falls this close to the resource area, we allow people to chop it up, but we leave it in place for the habitat value. Here I can see how it's raised off the ground.
Yeah.
But I'm sure if you cut it up into small enough pieces and
Drop it down to the ground?
Drop it right down to the ground.
Okay.
You know, leave it there. It's white pine, it'll rot fairly, you know, in a few
Absolutely.
seasons. I know that the woodpeckers love it, you know.
The beaver lodge
Oh,
right
yeah.
on the other side is
Yeah.
going to
Yeah,
love
they'll
it.
take care of that.
You know, if you put
Okay.
it towards the ground.
So the branches can be removed?
Put on the
The
ground
slash
next.
that you've cut,
Put on the ground next to it.
I would
yeah.
put it to the ground as well.
Okay.
Just chop it up, yeah, that'll, you know.
It'll decay fast. I mean, it's,
The beavers will take those small branches too. And use it on their lodge.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, so we would leave it.
Yeah, I just, looking at the list of things, the one that jumped out at my eye was burning dead trees and growth between 100-foot buffer and the property lines. First of all, the fire department is very clear on when you can do burning and the
Absolutely.
conditions. So, so are you burning, this is on the trust land?
This is on the trust land.
Okay, yeah,
Do
I
you allow
just,
that on the trust land?
that's.
I don't know if that's a
Is
condition
the
that's
trust, is the
allowed.
trust pulling the burning permit?
No, the resident would pull a burning permit because
And
they.
I think it needs to be on the resident's property. I don't think you can
Okay.
pull a burning permit to burn on someone
On
else's.
trust, yeah, on the
Or
CR.
just, you know, on some, you can't, I don't think you can,
And because you gotta have you've gotta get water supply there
Yep,
in
absolutely.
case it gets out of hand and, you know, it
Okay.
just,
So we'll need to modify then so that that is basically residents have to burn it on their own property. Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
with permits.
With permits
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
fire department.
Again, I'm not trying to repeat regulations and it's whatever the town.
And we're just reminding you.
Yeah.
I'm well aware of that, yeah.
And so my thought is, because there's certainly some of these things that are subject to Wetland Protection Act, you know, at least just denote, you know, portable docks for access to the ponds. Those are subject, I mean, that's something that if it was, you know, Nabnasset, we would be requiring, you know.
Well, the state would require a chapter 91.
Well, it's not a great pond, so it's not.
No, but if it was NAB.
Right, no, but I'm saying we would require a filing, either an order of conditions, you know, something to say that, you know, the construction of the dock is satisfactory to not have a detrimental impact to. So so that's one of the, mow and maintain walking path 4 to 6 feet wide to clear access to the water. I want the next clause to be, and to not be improved. Let's not start putting pavers down there and start, it's kind of the,
Slippery slope.
right, or it's just the next continuation of, and so that's my thought on that one. What was it, the other? Yeah, removing the invasive species, I think that's a great and heroic task I have.
But is sumac an invasive species?
Oh, I don't know about sumac. I mean,
This is.
It's a woody vegetation, essentially, so it would fall under that as well. I mean, we're looking at more the roses that grow up there.
Well, yeah, because I mean, sumac is a wonderful for wildlife habitat. So it's, it's kind of like, I think you need to be careful when you start, if you're going to talk about invasive species, you have to reference something that's an approved or agreed upon source of, yes, this is.
An invasive species.
This is invasive species, so Japanese knotweed, yes. Multiflora rose, yes. Bittersweet, yes.
Bittersweet,
But other things,
Like poison ivy,
yeah,
no.
poison ivy's not an invasive species.
It's
I mean,
native.
It's native.
right.
Yeah.
It's invasive. It's
Invasive, but it's
invasive,
native.
but it's not a non-native
Right,
invasive.
and
So
so-
I think that's.
Yeah.
Margaret, I understand your point. We're getting into, it is
Leave
the
the native
bad
species
pun.
alone.
It's getting into the weeds, but if that's, invasive,
Invasive,
non-native,
non-native, yeah.
invasive.
Yeah.
And then also, I wanted to get the commission's thought on, obviously this number 7 is kind of for the management of the meadow habitat as a meadow, I forget the section now, early succession, habitat. But is it,
Just jump in when you're ready.
yeah, is it, no closer than 50 feet from the wetland resource area, because, if the commission would, typically if this was, a homeowner looking to, manage vegetation within that 50 to 100 foot to, a water body, the commission would, oh, no, we need to maintain that buffer, It just, again, I'm looking for some direction with the, remove dead fallen trees as necessary, maybe that's, cut and slash to,
That leaves
You
it
know,
really
Just as we
open.
described the last one.
right, cut to ground and,
And left.
As necessary is pretty much open for debate, like, anyone could say it was as necessary, but it wasn't really.
Was it necessary?
Was it?
Jim?
The purpose for all these things, if you go back to the CR wording, is to maintain an early succession vegetation community for the enhancement and maintenance of wildlife habitat. It's not for, access to the pond or the lake. It's not for, improving vistas from the home. This one bothered me here, the limb
Yeah, I
up
don't
trees
like
up
that
to 20 feet. That's just cutting trees for view.
Yeah, that's just improving a view shed.
How is that improving wildlife habitat? It's reducing it. So I'm not sure, how did ones like that, like number 9, come from the description?
I think I think personally, I think the restriction's poorly worded. I think it's very vague about what it allows and what it doesn't allow, which is one of the reasons why we came up with this list is so that we didn't have a lot of ambiguity. This was a list that people, came up with and said, this is okay. I did,
Example number 9, cutting tree limbs.
it was,
to improve the view. It
it
says
was,
right there, the purpose is for vista.
Yeah.
To improve the view.
yep.
And there's nothing about one of the conservation,
Yeah, how does that improve the CR?
right.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how it came from that.
To be honest, I'm
Maybe
not,
what somebody wants, but I don't think it has anything to do with conserving.
Okay. Thank you for the feedback.
So there's a few things in there that, I think we got a little bit concerned with, right?
Mhm. Yeah, because woody, thorny growth can be wildlife habitat.
What sort of protective fencing would you add to the trees to prevent further beaver damage?
I think we were putting a mesh around it.
A plastic mesh or
Probably metal.
metal, yeah.
So what do you want to do with this, guys? Have him take it back, revise it?
As long as we have it ahead of time, then the next time we can.
Okay. I'll work with Matt then, as far as.
Okay.
Yeah,
that sounds
again,
good.
because
That sounds good.
there's some kind of, overlap, and I
See it before
appreciate
the
the
next meeting.
trust not trying to re-list regulations and, things that are, but I do think that is, especially where, residents would be seeing this, I do think there would be some, hey, this is what you want to do. Also, so you do need to get approved ultimately with the trustees as, the property owner, but also, the commission under the Wetlands Protection Act and
Right.
the Wetlands Bylaw.
So an
you know.
asterisk on something,
Mhm.
would say, you know what I mean, would bring them back down to the bottom.
Yeah, okay.
Don't let us think, or I don't want you to leave here thinking that we're not appreciative of the
Yeah.
effort. We're just tweaking it.
No, I think that's fine. I think that's,
Do this on the 27th, probably.
But I think you've made a great attempt here to try to get this nailed down.
We would have had a
While we
chance.
find issues with some of it, definitely appreciate the effort.
good, thank you.
We would have a chance to, absorb it and tweak it and so finalize it on the
Yeah.
next time.
No, I appreciate you. We did put in a fair amount of effort to come up with this list.
Oh,
This
I
is,
know what it
Sure
takes.
you
this
did.
is not an easy thing to do. I went down and visited the Norman Bird Sanctuary down in Rhode Island, and they have a statement on it that says that they mow. And I said, how do you get away with that? And so they said, well, we only do it once a year, and we do it at a time when it's not gonna affect the animals, but that's how they maintain their meadow.
Was that in Newport or Middletown?
It's probably Middletown.
It's
I mean, I
Middletown,
always
I
stay in
think.
Newport when I go, but
Yeah, and they do it at Lakeside Villages.
It's right on the,
Lakeside
Lakeside
Villages
Meadows
does
the same
that,
thing in
yeah.
Lakeside Meadows.
Lakeside Meadows, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They-
they
Yeah.
mow it, they
October to
mow it
May.
in October,
They-
when all
exactly.
the birds
are gone.
and the
exactly.
rabbits and.
And I asked him about doing it in April, and he said that's before the migratory birds come, it's before the animals start creating nests, it's before, so he said he thought April would work. And I thought April made sense just from a burning standpoint. It's a good time to just clear everything.
But also October to take down what's come up during the growing season.
And even with burning, I'd have an asterisk permission
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
I'm really serious about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Nobody will get in trouble and nobody will get hurt.
Yeah,
Okay.
because there are times, when the fire department may say, no, we do not want burning.
Well, the point
Well,
is,
they do
you have to ask
Yeah,
them.
right, yeah.
No, but, yeah,
I'm saying it so that the people who are reading it are very clear about,
Okay, so I'll plan on coming back for the 27th then, and I'll work with Matt on
Yeah.
some.
right, and we'll
This
have
week
seen
and
it
next.
before.
Pardon me?
We'll have seen it
It
before.
was in our package.
So we can, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
and we just, we'll
That's what I
kind of
meant. That's what I meant.
redline it.
So we'll see you again on the 27th.
Thank you for what you've done.
And again, thank you for your efforts.
Yeah.
I know
Okay.
how difficult it can be. So thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
You have a
You have
question?
a question?
Yes, I do.
Sure.
Name and address for the record.
Yep. Stephen Costa. I'm one of the trustees of Chestnut Hill Estates and resident at 6 Deer Run. I think a lot of the confusion, and I know your charter is also to educate the public, and I've as a trustee and an abutter for the violator, or one of the violators, I have done my job to try to educate based on what I know and have read on the wetlands restrictions. I think our group really needs clarification from this board on what the delineation, and we have a 100-foot wetland buffer conservation restriction, and then there's the development conservation restriction that somewhat points to the wetlands, but it doesn't detail all the restrictions. I think by this list, we're hoping to get clear definition of what the residents can do, whether it's selective cutting of woody growth or whatever. Because in the confusion, and I tried to make my point that the conservation restriction on the development points toward maintaining upland, a meadow area of upland areas. It doesn't say you're authorized to maintain and chop away trees and things on the wetland, and that's what I tried to articulate. We need clarification through this list, hopefully that it's clear to the residents that we can or cannot do certain things, that's all.
Sounds like a worthy goal to achieve.
Yeah, it sounds,
Then it will be no confusion.
no argument
So we'll
about that.
continue working on it on the 27th, and, you know, hopefully we can get to a point where we provide the clarity that folks are seeking.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our 8:20 PM agenda item, which is a public hearing continued for 31 Bridge Street. Chris is here this evening.
Yes.
Chris, how you doing? Come on up. You're the next contestant.
The ongoing contestant.
Featured guest star.
Yeah.
Should send you a
featured
Christmas
guest.
card.
How we doing out there?
Very frustrated. I have called numerous people numerous times, almost to the point of being crazy. There's a, there's a fine line between being persistent and being crazy. I might have crossed that line a couple times, trying to find somebody to take this job. To delineation and the new overlay, take my existing map and overlay the new floodplain on it and all the rest. So I'm hoping, I saw the woman here, the Norse engineering. Yeah, and
Christine?
Whoever was here earlier, I got her phone number, yeah.
His wife is Christine.
Yeah, whatever, she, I told her I'd give her a call. It's out, Oxbow Associates in
I
Acton.
know Oxbow, yeah.
I sent everything over to them earlier this week, and I'm waiting to hear. So it's not from lack of trying, it's lack of response on everybody else's end. I can't, I don't know how these people do it.
It's a new world.
Huh?
It's the new world.
I don't, I just, like I said, I have gotten no response. Atlanta.
Time of the year.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, and it's just, like I said, I've made numerous calls. I actually took the list, and I said, well, I'll start with people close by. And, like I said, I think the, Oxbow was the only person that was, that called back, and I sent them the package of what you folks are looking for. And again, I'm waiting to hear.
Okay.
So, that's essentially
So
the
you're
one.
you're certainly trying to meet the intent of what we've requested of you.
Yeah.
You're certainly waiting, you're just waiting on others.
Yeah, and I can't, and again, there's a fine line between being persistent and being crazy, and if I cross that line, they're never gonna work with me, so, I don't wanna be that person that's like, oh, yeah.
So when do you wanna come back?
How about May 11th? Yeah, that should be fine. I'm hoping I'll have somebody contracted by then. We could still be, I could still be working at it, though.
Yeah,
you let us know.
And we'd expect you to be, but, there's nothing you can do other than, try to get somebody out there to do what we requested.
Right, exactly.
Can appreciate that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I didn't think it would be this,
crazy.
No, it's just voicemail, everybody goes to voicemail. It's like, no one picks up a phone anymore. No one picks up a phone. I'm not used to, I work in a
Nobody
business.
is.
I pick up when you call.
Yes,
I just
yeah.
wanted to-
Yeah, no,
Chris calls, I
I
pick
work
up.
in a business where we pick up the phone and answer it, no matter, we don't know who it is. I've just left voicemail after voicemail. Listen, I have a plan that's, 23 years old, I'd like to have a new overlay on it. There's some other things that the conservation would like me to do, but can you give me a call back? If you do, and a couple of people we called, I finally went to one office, and they said, well, we don't do that. Have the courtesy of just call me back and say, we don't do that. I won't leave another message. I don't know.
So with that said, was it May 11th?
Yes, May 11th. All right.
Guys, can I have a motion to continue
moved.
this till May 11th?
So moved.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stay well.
Happy Easter.
Thank you. You all. See you next
Safe.
month. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our discussion and action items. The first one is Flowers to Empower.
I just sent you an email, Matt, with a picture of the bat boxes.
Oh,
They
great.
were installed yesterday, so thanks to the highway department, they were very, very helpful. And quick update, the community garden had an opening meeting last night. We had the day school cafeteria was completely full. So we have about 150 families gardening this year, so. off to a
We're
good start.
excited for the new season.
We always are, you know? New season always feels good, so.
Yeah, it's really nice to see the community come together like that and be excited for community gardening.
There was someone there last night who has gardened in a neighboring community's community garden, and I won't mention which one, but she was so impressed with how organized the meeting was last night, how friendly it was, how much information was presented. We have all the rules, what you do, what you don't do, and how we all try to get along and be helpful, and we donate food, and, like, yeah, just terrific volunteers.
Shining example.
Running, yeah. A feel-good town project, so.
Loving it, absolutely loving it.
And I'm excited that we're going to add to the property. I feel like one more piece of agriculture down there, so.
Questions from the, Jim?
All right, I went through the licensing agreement, the draft, that's what we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay, all for this program, so don't get the wrong impression.
What'd you say?
I said I'm all for the program.
Okay,
I think it's a
okay.
great idea. There's just a few things that I'm curious about. How come Fallon Knoll is listed as a grantor of a license?
That
She doesn't have
was,
any interest in that property, and nor is she an owner of any of the land.
this was drafted by town council. He thought it was best to just have all three as this was, I can certainly reach out and check with him about.
Physically, there's no connection between them.
She's in a butter, so she's in a butter as opposed to a licenser.
A different piece of land.
Yeah, I can certainly
All
check with town council and,
It just seems that.
get their rationale.
And to get her approval to let the town allow the girls to run a flower company, seems kind of strange.
I think Jim, the one place we would want to mention her is we'll likely be sharing a water resource.
That's one of my topics here, too.
So make sure that that's,
It says the sprinkler's gonna be used for watering, but there's no mention anything in there about sharing water resources, and I assume that the flower company, or whatever you wanna call it, is gonna be used, or girl.
Flower to Empower?
Flower to Empower.
There you go.
Is gonna be using the same water source that we have from the well for the community gardens.
Yes.
everyone's using the same well down there. Matt and I were down at the property a week or two ago. We'll need some kind of connection. There's one over by the field, but it's a 2-inch irrigation line, so we need to figure out something maybe with the water department to see how we'll be able to hook up. We just need a garden hose. We don't need a.
So something about that, the sharing of water, how much, if there's certain times, because it says watering is during the evening hours and morning hours.
Yeah, I think we put in dawn.
Dawn and dusk.
Okay.
It's
And I
probably
would
consistent
suggest
with
the
the
dawn and
town's
dusk
part.
hours also be used for the hours for the operation of the sale of flowers. That's
Well, yeah, that was a blank one, and
right.
I didn't
Something-
realize it was not filled in until I realized it wasn't a break,
Right,
like a
it's
section. It was a section
exactly.
break.
But I would think something like dawn to dusk for that. That would be okay.
That works.
During the last discussion where we talked about the ideas going into this, Marilyn had brought up, and I think it's in our minutes, that she'd like an annual report from Flower to Empower, essentially just letting us know how it went. Something like after the growing season's over, like in December or something.
Sure.
The rationales, which would keep
And
it
then
going.
lastly, this is probably done by the town lawyer, but the amount of insurance being required is phenomenal. $1 million policy for some high school girls going to be growing some flowers.
I think it was, he took Fala's leaves and tailored it, so I can certainly check with town manager's office to see what's an appropriate level of insurance.
All right. And I hope it's significantly less than that, because, I mean, this would take hundreds of dollars in premiums right off any flower sales that they may be able to have in the summertime.
And so I'm wondering what the difference is. The gardeners do not have insurance. Is this because this actually, we're under the auspices of Rotary in terms of our fiscal agent. We haven't set up our own nonprofit. They're going to manage the money for us so that we don't have to get our own 501c3.
You gonna be part of the Rotary Club, sort of, doing?
Yeah, they're gonna take us under
They're
their
gonna be your
wing as-
sponsor?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, which makes it much easier to launch than to go through all those legal hoops to set up our own project. So I don't know if we wanna name them in here as well.
I don't know that that's pertinent.
Well, but and I guess
They're
some of
simply
it
a
is,
sponsor.
do they have a legal commitment to support you for the duration of the lease? You know, or is it just is it a verbal commitment to support you, or are they, is it the same level of legal commitment to support your activities during the duration of the operation?
I don't think they didn't put an end on it. I think their vote was probably, yes, we'll support Flowers to Empower and be their fiscal agent.
Okay.
So if I need to go back and ask them to commit for a certain period of time, it was also
I
a
don't
case
see
of.
how that affects us.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
see how
it's-
that
It doesn't
either.
affect us in any way. If it fell through, they'd have to do it themselves.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the year,
Know about a commitment from
Yeah, I don't
another
think
to
it has
make
to
this
be in
happen.
No, yeah, but it just is,
My
does
concern
that,
was the $1 million policy. That's
yeah,
all.
That's
but my thought is if all of a sudden Rotary, for whatever reason, has to step away from this, does that, in effect, maybe bring you to the point where you need to break the lease?
so we have another,
Doll.
we have another organization that would be willing to be our fiscal agent. We just
Okay.
had determined that Rotary was more strategic in terms of the
yeah, and
relationships
I'm
we would
just-
get. And the other options, we could always set up our own 501c3. You know, and we may decide to do that at the end of the year, and that's, you know, why we left it a little open-ended with Rotary. If things are going well, we may just
Okay.
keep our current arrangement with them, or we may decide in 6 months that we want to be independent for some reason.
Okay, continuing on, an example of where I don't think putting Falinol in there is a good idea is in the termination clause, where the licensors, which include her,
She's
can
listed
terminate
as-
at any time with notice. That doesn't make sense. It's our property. Our tenant shouldn't be able to terminate their
I
use
thought
of
of,
the property. So I think
Yep,
if
that
we're gonna
makes sense.
include Falinol in there, she should be in there only as like for information. for her-
Listed tenant, you know,
Sure.
like, you know, current
A
tenant. or
butter,
something.
a
We're
butter,
gonna be
whatever.
Sharing water and the parking, that kind of thing. And then, I had mentioned this at our last meeting also, that I'd like, a permanently assigned single adult point of contact as your, I guess it would be you,
Yeah,
Elizabeth.
I'm happy to be that.
First page, it just says Flower to Empower, but, you know, a specific person, individual adult.
Yep.
That's gonna be with the program for time.
Attention care of, does anybody have a?
Well, Elizabeth would be.
Right, no, I'm saying, but like, you know, Flowers to Empower, you know, care of, you know,
Okay,
just
right,
as,
sure,
you know,
yes.
listing something.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
And then, lastly, there's a few typos in here, I'll pass this over to Matt, he can see them on.
Thanks.
So I think to pick up on what Jim said, I think naming Fala and then perhaps also the community garden and the beekeepers, like just that we're all sharing the space, acknowledging that we now have 4 entities. Abutters, and we're sharing resources of parking lot, driveway, water.
it's not a bad idea because
Yes.
it means everybody knows it.
Yeah.
And we all have to come to the table if there's an issue.
Right,
Okay.
but I don't think we should be granting Nola, as a licensor. 'Cause she's a tenant.
Yep, she's,
I think it came out of the fact you thought you were using a portion of the land that was.
Right, but it's not.
Yeah,
Right,
I
in the
got it.
beginning, we thought.
Right, I think that's where that came from
Maybe.
originally, right.
But we know it's separate.
I understand, but I think that's where it came from.
I think this is a great program. I just wish it was more inclusive. I wish that it wasn't just for girls. I think that it would be important to teach future generations that segregation doesn't have to be a thing, that we can all do things. I'm sure that there would be young boys that would be interested in doing this, and I wish that it would just be a little bit more all-inclusive. That's
Maybe down the
my
road,
biggest
year
problem
two.
with it, yeah. I mean, I think of the Boy Scouts of America, they,
Yeah, but I'm
Yeah.
saying maybe year 2, and maybe,
Yeah.
you know, as they go down.
And you know, I won't rule that out for the future. I will say, candidly, some of this inspiration came out of what some of us have perceived as fewer opportunities for some of the girls in town compared to the opportunities provided by some organizations that, yes, Boy Scouts now will include girls, but candidly, I'm not gonna send my 11-year-old camping with 50 boys. So I think there's still room for more opportunities for girls.
And sometimes, having gone to an all-girl high school and an all-girl college, sometimes it was really great to have activities where it was only women. You know, so not to say that there shouldn't be cases, it just, I benefited from it, and so I can see that there are times when it's really nice to be able to be just women supporting each other. And there are times that it should be inclusive as well, but, you know, yeah, I think I'd like to see how this gets going.
Yeah, and I'm open to, you know, changing this going forward. This is, you know, just where some of us who are coming from this year and seeing the need for, you know, another opportunity, that because there are not equal opportunities around, even today for all those programs, so.
I think it would be important to create a program that is equal opportunity then.
This is not going away.
So we have.
Let's be optimistic.
Yeah.
We have this license agreement. Needs to be modified.
I can have it ready for the next one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's have it and be able to finalize it.
Yep.
You have Jim's comments, if
Yep.
anybody wants to add anything to it.
Nope.
But yeah, I'd like to finalize this, so, there's nothing further to be said, can I have a motion to continue this until the 27th?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have these poor souls in the audience. What are you waiting for? Which item? Are you waiting for anything?
Oh, sorry, 87 Graniteville.
Maybe we could do that next, so they don't have to sit here till.
I just listed updates on enforcement orders. I'll start with 25 Buckboard because it's going to be shorter. Land Tech has prepared a notice of intent for the property owner. They should be filing shortly. The property owner's attorney is reviewing it right now. I would like them to file and have it on no later than the first May meeting. So, but, that's that one. 87 Grantville, there were dates, I think, was it April 4th?
There was some June dates in there.
Yeah, well, yeah, there was there was an April 4th date for removal of the accumulated piles of material, you know, the lawn, the grass clippings, the mulch. That was the first kind of
Milestone.
Yeah, the first milestone that has been removed. That was removed when they were doing it. I think it was beginning of end of 2 weeks ago now. I guess 10 days. They did include the removal of the shed and the detritus around it. You know, the historic stuff that was in there. Also, some of the areas that had been filled towards the wetland. In that same general vicinity as the shed. And they still have some other, you know, some of the other items in the order to take care of. But again, as Jim mentioned, it was an early June timeline established by the commission. I did receive an email yesterday, today, one of the days. They're all blend together now, from Mr. Sincata. There are two large piles that had, you know, of established loam that are still on the property. In order to remove those, I feel like is a significant, it was not one of the quick actions that, you know, can be done. I also know that the property owner and his son-in-law are looking into filing with the commission to have, you know, to have that be an accepted, you know, to go through the filing process. So I was, at the time, you know, it's a stable pile of loam, it's not eroding, it's not, so I'm comfortable with where it currently is, especially where they are looking to go forward with the having the approved use of, you know, stockpiling of, you know, materials or as they're pursuing that, you know, should that certain, you know, should that avenue, be not acceptable under zoning, you know, I'd be reaching out to them and looking to have those removed and, you know, not have the site utilized anymore. But in order to remove those piles, there's certainly going to need to be heavy machinery that's.
So right now, how close are they to the resource area of those piles?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, you know what might be a real big help if the plan that I sent to Matt, if we could just pop that up on the screen. I think it gives a lot of context.
I don't have access to my email on this.
The stockpile that's probably on
I
your.
have to have you identify yourself for the record.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Paul Sincotta, I'm representing my sister Karen Sincotta. Karen owns the property. The stockpile is about 20 feet away from a flowing stream. It's well within a 100-foot buffer. The order was pretty clear that all of the stockpile materials that included construction debris, loam, seed, grass clippings, mulch, and all of that kind of stuff, including concrete and asphalt, that all of that had to be removed from the buffer. It was fairly straightforward. So that hasn't happened. In fact, none of that material has been removed from the property. The only thing that has been removed from the property was the shed. It was carted away in a couple of dumpsters, and all of the stockpiles were consolidated into a single stockpile that is clearly inside of the 100-foot buffer. Like I said, one side of the pile is about 20-25 feet away from the stream that
So I've got one large stockpile of material that's within 20 feet of the stream.
And it appears as though that pile isn't going to go anywhere anytime soon. It's certainly not stable because it's a raw pile of stockpile material with no sill fence hay bales that were installed at the beginning of the work. The whole area that's been disturbed as a result of the regrading. There were stumps that were buried there. You can see where boulders were pulled out to make room for burying some of the materials. And so certainly there's a large area that's unstable, that's well within, I mean, it's all within the 100-foot buffer. I would urge the commission to visit the property.
I guess what I'm trying to find from that right now is like, I'm hard pressed to see if I have a stockpile within 100 or within 20 feet of a resource area, how the commission would allow somebody to come in through a notice of intent. And, you know, I don't see that being an activity that the commission is going to permit.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, it's not consistent with the order. It's just not consistent with the enforcement order. The enforcement order was-
It doesn't sound it. I thought originally we had asked that to be removed out of that area. And it seems like this gentleman is, you know, if he wants to come back after the fact, that's fine, but we had an enforcement order out there that asked him to do something, and I think that, you know, he should be obligated to do what was requested.
Okay, I will follow up with them in the morning.
Do I see it differently? I don't see how we're.
No, you don't.
I don't see how we would ever
How can we
allow
go
a
forward
stockpile within
until he
20
hasn't
feet of a
cleaned this up?
resource area to continue.
And I think if he
If
did,
our order didn't say, to provide erosion control between the stream and the, if there's a stream really that close, there's gotta be some erosion control barrier
The
before they
first,
remove.
I'm sorry to interrupt, the first condition of the enforcement order was to get silt fence, you know, wattles approved by the commission before the work started. It's all typical stuff. What's really frustrating for me to watch is to see the kind of care that this commission takes in enforcing the act. Well, no, it's not, I'm not hung up on the fact that the dates haven't been met. I'm not hung up on the fact that, you know, there may or may not be soil stabilization by June 1. I'm hung up on the fact that this particular restoration isn't even close to what the order requires, and clearly this commission takes very, very seriously the act. You listen to everything that comes before, folks that want to regrade backyards, folks that want to remove trees. Please, I would urge you to drive by this property and see how inconsistent it is with both what the order required and what's going on within that 100-foot buffer. The separate issue that Matt alludes to is that this property's been used for commercial purposes. Jarvis Landscape has used this property, and the reason why all this material's been stockpiled there, it's not because it's the property owners, it's because it's Jarvis Landscaping's construction yard. And so it's a commercial activity on a residential piece of property. And it impacts not only my sister's property, but it impacts the people in the neighborhood. And so, frankly,
I really just want the order to be I mean, if we have an enforcement order
Exactly.
out there, let's have it be followed. And if not, then we need
We're not interested in doing anything else until that's cleaned up.
Right.
And the
I
use of the
don't
We don't
see
have
how
anything to do
anything
with
moves
zoning,
forward
yeah.
until we have compliance with the
Right.
existing
I
enforcement
agree,
order.
I agree.
We have the
And that
Wetlands
might,
Protection Act, and we have the town's wetland zoning bylaws we can look at. But as far as whether a landscaping company can use the property, that's a zoning issue.
And the commission indicated that in the first visit here, and it made it perfectly clear, and you're absolutely right. And we're working with the building commissioner
Okay.
on that matter.
On that part of it.
Right,
okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
I'd
Okay,
urge you to also
we'll
go
follow
back,
through with this.
go back and look in the file. There's a record
We need to.
plan, there's a record A&R plan for this property, has a wetlands delineation, it has the buffer identified on it. I provided that plan with highlighted colors so that you can clearly see where the buffer is. Without a tape measure, it's abundantly clear that the stockpile material is still well within 100 feet. The expectation was, take it out of the 100 feet, and I think everyone was gonna be happy. That's what the commission asked for, that's what we were expecting, and it's not even close.
I don't know if, I don't necessarily think that it has to be, we wouldn't say complete, I mean, through the course of our deliberations, I mean, we could make a determination that, an activity could take place within 100 feet. But I think right now we need the enforcement order to be, followed through.
The context of the last condition of the enforcement order, I think, made it clear that if the property owner wanted to resume similar kinds of activity of stockpiling leaves and grass clippings, which was alleged to be the activity, certainly has been more than that, but the commission made it clear, you need to file a notice of intent and get an order of conditions in order to do that activity, and that's what.
And that's what he would need, he would have to
Yeah.
get legally permitted to do that by us.
Exactly, and the point being that a notice of intent, in my understanding of how the order was written, was not to allow a stockpile of material that was the violation to remain there.
I think you and I see it from the same viewpoint.
I really, really appreciate your patience on this.
No, we'll follow through.
Thank you very much. Good night.
I've been gone.
So
Follow through?
I'm just
Yep.
wanting him to follow through on 87.
Yep.
We have an existing enforcement order I'd like to be complied with. Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Okay,
Just the way it
next
felt.
is a request for a certificate of compliance for 18 Villanova Drive.
I recommend, I performed a site visit, looked at the submitted materials, I recommend the commission
Motion
issue.
then to issue a certificate of compliance for 18 Villanova Drive, DEP file number 334-0467.
So moved.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Next certificate of compliance is,
Two Weedamoo Ways,
Lot line, yeah.
tabling them. Here's things to start signing. Meeting minutes, sorry. Here's-
Not the Weedham Ways?
Weedham Way, number 12, lot 1.
Tabling both of those until
Oh.
Okay.
they come back at the next meeting.
Okay,
Next one would be
25 buckboard.
the enforcement order for 25 Buckboard.
So that was the one I started before 87.
Yeah.
The notice of intent has been drafted. It is with the homeowner's attorney currently.
Okay.
Which I might just
Right.
wanna-
Meeting minutes for February 9th, 2022.
And me as well.
And so does the next one too. If you
Have
want
a motion then to accept the meeting minutes as written.
February 9th and March 9th?
So
Yes.
moved.
So, second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
executive minutes.
I have
We're
a,
fine,
I have a
too.
comment I can make in the executive session, but I can say it without breaking the executive session. I provided a comment to Matt about, an aspect of that that needs to be followed up and added to the minutes. Do you recall that?
All right,
Yes.
so we'll get another copy,
Yeah, at the next,
another confidential copy. Okay.
Okay, with that said, we have no,
One more thing that
Okay, Jim?
it's not on the list that should be.
yeah, it's Cypress and Sycamore.
Ding,
Yep.
ding, ding.
The boulders.
Yep, the boulders, they're coming.
I went by today, they're not there.
I know they're not there.
And I have a question. Did you
How are they
follow
getting
up
there?
on that shed at the
Who's
end
doing
of
that?
Elm?
Who's doing the boulders?
It's supposed to be
no.
moved? No?
Not yet.
Okay. It's still there.
Record site visits. The commission did go out to 12 Weedamoo,
Windy day.
on a very windy day. And I'm sure the comments will be included at the next public hearing for 12 Weedamoo Way, correct?
Good.
Yes,
Okay.
great.
excellent.
The next meeting, we're gonna have the boulders and Sycamore Cypress on there again, right?
They will be. No, they're gonna be out there, Jim.
If so,
It's gonna
that's
be a
great.
moot point.
Then we just need the bushes put in, the rocks and the bushes.
The bushes, I'll get you some bushes.
There you
Okay.
go. Seeing nothing further, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All's in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Can
folks.
you use some more of those wide mouth lids and dancing cat lids?
I